Hello, my name's Tim Lomas and I'm from Caterham Computing, and I'd like to show you today how you can use some free software to take a little bit more control over Windows 8 and to make it operate a little bit more like Windows 7 to give you a more familiar environment. A lot of people that I deal with tell me that they don't like this start screen that you get by default with Windows 8. Now in Windows 8.1 we get this start button down in the corner, and if I right click on that you'll see it's got various options, many of which used to appear on the Windows 7 and Windows Vista start menu. The thing that's not listed there is the actual list of programs. To get to that I have to come through here, which is all well and good while I'm in the start menu, but if I'm working on something else in the desktop environment and I want to get to a program, I've got to either come up here and start searching for it, or go back to the start screen and start scrolling through my list of programs. As you can see, I've got quite a lot installed on this computer, so that's not the most convenient way for me to work. So I'll just go back to the desktop. Now, Windows 8.1, and you'll know if you've got Windows 8.1 because you'll have this start button in the corner, does allow you to set it up so that it will take you directly into the desktop environment. And you can Google that and you'll find many tutorials on how to do that. What I'm going to show you is slightly different. We're actually going to change this so that when I click that button, instead of swapping between the desktop and the start screen, it's going to bring up a start menu the way it used to under Windows 7, Vista, XP, ME, 98 and 95. And then I'll show you how you can customize that to make it work as you want. So the first thing we need to do is to actually download the program. So I'm going to go to the website, which is classicshell.net, and this is actually a little suite of programs which help you set Windows 8 and Internet Explorer 9 upwards to look and feel a little bit more like the versions you'd be used to if you were using Windows 7. So if I show you the screenshots, you'll see we've got the start menu, which is what we're really interested in, and you can see that there are you can be skinned in various ways, and you can make it look and feel like anything from Windows XP upwards, really. So I'll show you the other things which we're not going to install in this tutorial. You're free to install them if you want to. Classic Explorer is just a little toolbar, effectively, that gives you all the options that you used to have under Windows 7, but which are hidden away somewhat behind all these ribbons in Windows 8. And Classic IE9 just really adds little things like the title bar for web pages, and one or two other minor changes. Personally, I don't find either of those particularly necessary for myself, but if you think you might actually need that, then obviously you'll see in a minute that we'll be able to install those at the same time. So I'm going to download the program. It takes us to a mirror where the file is hosted. This mirror opens up the program automatically when I go into it, so I'll just click save. They may use a different mirror system in the future, in which case you may need to click on another link to download the program. I can see it's finished downloading here. Norton's telling me that it's safe. So I'm just going to click on the install program, and that should open it up. So here we go. I'll close Firefox now just to make it a bit clearer. So we've got our install wizard. So it's just giving us a welcome message, nothing to choose here, so we'll click next. The next step is to agree to their license. I've installed this many times, so I'm fairly familiar with their license. So I'm just going to tick the box on this occasion. I do urge you that whenever you're installing any software and it forces you to accept a license agreement, do read the license. I know they can be long, boring, and a little bit sort of dull and impenetrable, but you are agreeing to whatever they say here, and that could be that they can download your programs, install other things in the background while you're using their software or anything. So on this occasion it's actually quite a short, simple statement of what the program does. So I'm happy to accept this license, so I'm going to tick the box and click next. If you read that license and you're not happy with it, just hit cancel and find another solution. Okay, so as you can see, it's given us the options of what we want to install here. The Classic Explorer, which I mentioned earlier, which adds an extra toolbar to the Windows Explorer. I don't want that, so I'm going to deselect that. And the same with the Classic IE. So that just leaves the Classic Start menu, which is what I do want, and the Classic Shell Update. Now this is a little program that will sit in the background and just look for updates to the Classic Start menu program. Up to you whether you install that, but I would suggest that it's probably a good idea, because if it's been updated, it's either going to be improved or it will be a bug fix. Either way, you probably will benefit from having the newer version on your machine. This box to create a start menu folder should be ticked. If it's not, tick it and then just click next. And now do the actual install. Windows prompts us to let us know something is being installed. Obviously we do want to allow the program to install, and it runs through relatively quickly and it's all installed. So I can untick the box for the readme file because I don't want to read it. Do feel free to donate if you feel the program is useful. As I say, I'll stress that I'm not affiliated to these people, but it certainly seems to be a very good program. So I'm going to click finish, and that should, in a moment, pop up the settings for the classic menu. So if I click here now, you can see that instead of taking me to the start page, it's actually brought me into a fairly familiar looking menu system. Got all programs, very much the same as Windows 7 used to be. Now we can make some changes here. If I right click now, instead of the options that we had before with this start menu, you can see we've now got options for the actual classic start menu itself. So the first thing we want to do is go to settings. I'll just point out as an aside that you can still get to the start screen because there's this link at the top that's always here, and you get back in exactly the same way. Or if you hold the shift key down while pressing the button, again it takes you to the start screen. So I'm going to take you through the menu styles. There are three basic styles. You've got the classic style, which is similar to Windows XP, the flyout menus. The two-column classic, which again fairly similar to Windows XP. And all the options down the side, pretty much the way you'd expect them to be. I tend to stick with Windows 7. Now what I've got here, because I've got Windows 8.1 installed and I already had this button here, it's actually using that button to access the menu. If you prefer to have a different button there, you can click this replace the start button tick box. If you're running Windows 8 where you don't have that start button, you'll probably just get this arrow button by default, which is their own logo. So that will all work the same. So I'm going to leave mine as being Windows 8 symbol. You can choose your own image for the button, or you can go to what they call the classic, which is the Windows XP type start button. But I tend to work either with this arrow button selected if it's a Windows 8 install, or just replacing the start button, or replacing the functionality of the start button that's already there in Windows 8. So the next lot of settings, you can see here that if we left click with the mouse, it will open the classic start menu. If I hold shift and click, it will open the Windows start menu. You may want to swap those over so that by default everything works normally, and when you want to use the menu you just hold shift down. You can choose what happens when you use the Windows key, which is the button on your keyboard which has this Windows symbol on it. By default it opens the classics menu, but again you can swap that over so that when you press that button it swaps you to the start page, but then you hold shift and press it and you get the menu. So it depends whether you want to completely replace what you're doing with the menu system, but for most people the default settings are what's really wanted. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of these settings. There's a couple here that I want to point out to you. There's one here which says start automatically for this user. Now, Classic Shell is a program and it won't run automatically unless it's told to. The default setting is for it to automatically run, but if you only wanted to enable it on occasion, you could untick that box, and then you'd have to manually run the program. So I'm going to leave that ticked. The other thing is this skip metro screen tick box. Now if I was to untick that, when I came into Windows it would still drop me onto the start screen, but if I tick it, it will actually skip past that start screen and take me directly into the desktop. Now for the way I work, that's the way that I prefer it to be, so I leave it on the default setting of having that ticked. Again, that's something you might want to play around with. There are various skins for the menu system, so the default is this Windows 8 skin, which just is fairly innocuous, settles in. There's a Windows Aero skin, which is a little bit more like Windows 7 or Windows Vista, because that's a few rounded corners, and shadows and bits and pieces, which is quite nice. And there's the classic skin, which is really just trying to look a bit like Windows XP. So if I set that classic style with the classic skin, then you'll see that it looks very, very much like Windows XP used to, and there's various options here you can play with. Generally speaking, I think the Windows 8 styles of skin or the Windows Aero are probably the nicest to look at and fit in the best. And then finally you've got the customize start menu options here. Now I can choose on this example. You'll see I've got all the folders, documents, pictures, music and video as well. Apart from making these tutorials, I don't really do a lot of video, so I don't really want that link there. So I'll just come down to where it's listed here, click where it says display as a link, and it should give me the option to not display that item. So if I go in here now, you can see videos has disappeared, and you can go all the way up and down this with various options that are there by default and choose what you want on there. So all in all, a very useful program, very simple program, and a very easy to set up program. So I hope that's been of some use to you, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, please